Three, two, one.
Fuck. we were close on the 2.
I felt like the 1 was a little was closer. But okay, let's try that again. 3, 2, 1.
Fuck. Well, we had it.
No, we didn't. You were way off on the 2. That was fucking terrible.
What's up, guys? My name is Manime, and today I am joined back with the Smuggler. I enjoyed him so much that I invited him back on for the 12 days of anime.
And it's good to be back. It's it's been too long.
It has been too long. It's only been like 2 weeks, has it? Well, I guess 3 weeks now. I don't know. Anyway, today we are going to be doing 3 videos back to back to back to back for the 12 days of anime. We're going to be doing the past of anime, the ghost of present anime, and the ghost of future anime. So, it should be fun. So today we're starting off with the past of anime, and I'm going to ask you a really deep and hard question. What was your first anime?
What was my first anime? So not terribly embarrassing. My first ever anime was, well, I guess it depends. When I actually started watching anime, it was Soul Eater. When I was watching anime, because I watched anime a lot when I was a kid, like I was super into Digimon, Yu-Gi-Oh, just the typical like kids kind of shonen stuff. Never really into Naruto. I always thought the guys in my middle school wearing the headbands were kind of weird.
What's wrong with Naruto, son?
Fuck.
Dude, we're gonna fight? No, I'm just kidding. Go ahead, continue.
Yeah, no, but yeah, the first anime that I really watched where I was like, wow, this is cool, and this is something that I want to continue, like, really get into. It was probably Soul Eater, and I think that was just because of like, even for a cartoon, like when you're just coming into it, the first episode of Soul Eater really sticks with you. The first few episodes, especially, like it can deal with some really dark themes when you actually think about it, and like people actually getting like gruesomely just like murdered on screen. It was just like, whoa, this is weird and different. Maybe I didn't get into anime for the right reasons, but they were reasons nonetheless. Yeah, and that was kind of like I was back because originally I just had a Netflix subscription, and I was working as a delivery driver at the time, and then I rolled my car. I was a delivery driver and I crashed my car. So all of a sudden I was unemployed. And the only thing I had in my name was like a Netflix subscription, and I emptied out the science fiction category. Like I watched every single sci-fi show on Netflix, Farscape included, and then I kind of got bored, and I just got recommended Soul Eater in my list, and then I started watching it, and I'm like, wow, that's really awesome. And then here I am, like 3 years later, or what have I done with my life?
Nice. Yeah, I think I was a similar story with the Digimon thing. I think Digimon, Digimon, and I did watch Yu-Gi-Oh! Back when I was really young. I forgot about those. I didn't know those were anime at the time. I think the first real anime I watched was Eureka 7 back on, what was it? What it used to be called? Not on Adult Swim, but on Toonami.
Yeah.
Back on the original Toonami before it got canceled and brought back.
Those bastards.
Well, hey man, they knew the in popular demand they came back, so that was pretty badass.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now, the first time I ever really knew I was really watching anime was Naruto. I was a Naruto fan. I hate to admit it. That was the first time I ever like watched. Like I remember it because it was like the 100th episode of Naruto was coming out soon, and you were supposed to see Kakashi's face. And I was freaking out, like I want to see Kakashi's face. So I was like, let me go online and see like if I can find it early. And then I found out that subs exist, and that was actually a Japanese show. And then I sat there and binged all of Naruto in like,
I was just like
what? 3 weeks. Like it was like my mind's blown. Like there's anime on the internet, and that's where I was lost.
Mm.
Yeah. No, I got over Naruto fever once I got to Shippuden. There was only 16 episodes at the time, and 14 of them were fillers, and I was like, I don't think I like this show anymore. And then I found the real anime. I think like the next one I found was like Ouran High School Host Club or something.
God.
I was like, oh, this is good. This is so much better.
Ooh.
Where's the second season at?
Yeah, like what? Yeah, I want to see more. Like, why does this have 700 episodes too? Like, where's that? It was kind of like me. Like when I first started getting into anime, I was honestly like, I mean, one of the things that really appealed to me because I shortly before that I had really gotten into like Western television and stuff like that, and I started watching Western television this same kind of way that I watch anime now. I was going through week by week and watching literally every single show that came out within North America and most of the UK and stuff like that, and I just found the shows to be very boring and I guess not not very diverse in the subject matter that they dealt with. I felt like I was always kind of watching the same show. And I was really happy when I first started watching anime, and I'd watch a show. It would only be 12 episodes, which at times kind of sucked, but at other times, like, I would watch a show, it'd be 12 episodes, it would wrap itself up, and then I'd be on to the next show. And the show that I just watched and the show that I'm about to are just two completely different things, and it's like, I don't know, it just has so much more freedom. Like, you know, in this universe, all of this, everybody flies, you know, or whatever, like, or magical girls, like, save the world with the power of music or something like that, or just weird shit.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. The same thing. My problem was I always lacked diversity in American shows, and my problem is like, so I'm a filmmaker, so I know a lot of these tropes, and I can read into shows really early, and generally, like, I'm one of the first people. Like, it's awful. Like, me and my mother, we both do it. We used to go see movies, and the two of us would try to see who could figure out the ending first, and like, it'd be like the first 10 minutes we'd be racing, like, oh, it's gonna end like this, and then sure enough, we were right, and it was, you know, and it just kind of got to me. That's why I really liked anime, is because, like, I remember when I first started watching anime, and, like, if you find the right shows, you can go like, I have no clue how this is going to end, and it's so interesting because it's like, it's so unique and diverse, and I don't know, it's definitely really fun to watch, and it's nice to see something fresh where I can't just easily predict exactly what they're planning on doing.
And I find it also really interesting too, like, the different business models lend, like, between Western and Japanese television, they definitely lend themselves to two different kinds of shows. With Western television, a show will always run too long. Walking Dead, prime example, Lost, like, all of these really good big shows that come out when they first come out are amazing. But I feel like if these shows had an end, if they were started with the end in mind, they would be a lot better. If Lost had been one season, like, holy shit, that would have been one hell of a season. Same thing with Walking Dead. Like, if Walking Dead would have only been like 3 seasons or whatever, and they would have wrapped it up in that time. But now, like, you know, you have problems with audience retention. Once you start to get past the 2nd and 3rd season, you know, people just stop watching this. They lose interest. Whereas anime doesn't necessarily have that issue, just because anime has such a hard time making money. But, I mean, it's not necessarily a bad thing all the time. I mean, like, the fondest shows that I remember are shows that ended when the going was good. I wish there was more of them, but by the same token, I remember them because when I was finished that last episode, I wanted so much more.
Yeah. Now, like, have you seen Westworld?
No, I haven't.
Okay, so anyway, the thing with Westworld, the way it ends, I'm not going to obviously spoil it to you, is very satisfactory. It's like the ending was like, oh, okay. And to me, it was like, there won't be a 2nd season, like, obviously, because it's so, like, well wrapped up and so well done. Looked it up, they already announced the 2nd season. I'm like, why? What are you going to do? Like, I have no clue. And it was just one of those things where it's like, it's, you know, it's for the money. It's the American setup, and that gets to me. I don't know.
Yeah, it's always, I mean, you know, it's always going to be about the money, because at the end of the day, entertainment is a business, and these companies do need to make money. But I feel like if they ended when the going was good and then started a new project with their, they hit the ground running, I feel like that would build a really good rapport. And I feel like by the same token, there aren't enough passion projects that get made, and that you have all of these producers sitting around who look at properties all day, and they're like, how can we turn this into a moneymaker? Have you seen the World of Warcraft movie?
No, I haven't, but I heard it's pretty decent, though.
It's, okay, well, I mean, okay, so I went to go see the World of Warcraft movie with a bunch of friends. Same friends who are into Naruto, mind you. They're also really into World of Warcraft, so, but, like, over the course of me watching anime, like, I've probably watched thousands of shows, which is kind of weird when I think about it, because with anime, it's a lot shorter. You can burn through it a lot quicker. I mean, I watched a lot of 6-part OVAs, which you can finish in like 2.5 hours. I mean, so you see a lot of the same thing over and over again, and after a while, you kind of start to develop that critical sense, and you get to a point where you can kind of start to see, I don't know, whether it just be like things that you like or things that you enjoy, whether it be cinematography or like just the way that camera angles are set up, or like action scenes, like how everything's moving around and the fluidity, and how these shows are actually directed, because a director has to sit there and be like, okay, I want this shot to be framed in this way, and this says something about how the character's feeling. And a prime example of that's in Anohana. And shows like that. But then you get these big blockbuster movies, and I mean, they're not necessarily bad movies. I mean, I by no means, like, I bring up examples, the Avengers and specifically the World of Warcraft movies. And I feel like they were made by people who didn't care. They were just the directors that they got on the team just didn't have any idea of how to put these abstract concepts, because to normal people, a video game lore can really be an abstract thing. Like, how to turn Wikipedia video game lore into an enticing movie is a big project. And I feel like it requires a lot of passion and a lot of creativity behind the staff who work on it. And I feel like a lot of the staff who are working in Western media just aren't impassioned enough to actually bring these products to their full potential. I was really wanting to like the World of Warcraft movie, just because it's not too often that a big budget video game movie gets made. And I feel like a lot of people just liked it because it was World of Warcraft and because they didn't feel like they were allowed to hate it. But I feel like the fans should be able to ask more out of the property that they consume, and I feel like that's something that Japan does.
Yeah, I feel like I can relate to you so much. Like, what was it? The newest Captain America movie, the Civil War one. I was like, okay, so I'm a big fan of like the Avengers and Marvel and all this stuff, and I do enjoy going to see those movies. But I mean, it was like, to me, like Iron Man, the original Iron Man, Winter Soldier, those were like good movies, really good movies that they were cared about, they were passionate about. But like with with Civil War, it was awful, but yet everybody was praising it like it was the best movie coming out because it's like it's inoffendable at this point.
Yeah,
and I think
exactly.
that's the problem with the Western consumption of media. It's like, oh, if you don't like such and such character, you're uncultured swine. And it's like,
yeah.
No.
Yeah, you're. It's like it's kind of like we're being boxed in. It's like Soviet Russia, and there's all this propaganda, and everybody's being brainwashed to enjoy a film before it even comes out. And then they go into the movie theater with expectations that they're going to enjoy it, and rather than looking at it in a critical light and coming away with it like, well, I mean, that was good, but it could have been better if, they just take it at face value, and nobody ever asks more from the people who make these films. And I mean, it's really bad, and we see it a lot, especially with Suicide Squad.
Oh God.
Suicide Squad. Like I really wanted to like Suicide Squad. Any movie that has Will Smith in it, I want to enjoy, because I'm just a Will Smith fanboy. Like I have all of his albums. Like, and like when I went to go see Suicide Squad and I heard all the crap about it, it was so hyped up and I was really excited about it. And then I heard the response from the critics, and I wasn't so much swayed by the response of the critics, but what really kind of left a bad taste in my mouth was the response of the fans to the critics. They actually, like, fans were petitioning to get Rotten Tomatoes shut down because the movie itself had gotten a bad review.
Yeah, it was awful, man.
Yeah, and that kind of shit, I don't feel like that flies in anime. If an anime is bad, nobody watches it, and that show stops getting made.
Sword Art
plain
Online?
and simple. I mean, well, no, okay. There's an exception to every rule. But
Yeah.
because Sword Art Online. But Sword Art Online, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily say that Sword Art Online is as bad as Suicide Squad, if I be so bold.
No. Well, and I think the idea is that like Sword Art Online's offendable. Like it's a joke. People are able to make fun of it, and it's successful. It's kind of like making fun of the Transformer movies. I mean, they're bad movies, but they're not meant for people who are looking at it analytically. It's an action flick,
Exactly.
They know what they are, and I think that's the thing with Sword Art Online. It understands what it is. It's a joke, and it's all about putting yourself in this character's shoes so you can feel like, ooh, look at me, I'm so special.
Yeah, and I guess a rebuttal to that, like, I guess somebody could say that, well, the Suicide Squad's just an action flick. Well, Suicide Squad's also a comic book movie. And not only did it fail as an action movie just due to really bad pacing, and, well, I say pacing, but that's a very broad term, due to very bad script writing and, bad character development inside of the movie, but it also failed as a comic book movie. Like, the people who were into the comic books did not enjoy the movie as much as they could if they were actually looking to get something out of it. I feel like you can enjoy everything if you, quote, like, turn your brain off, but I don't feel like I should have to do that. I feel like something, if somebody cares, if somebody takes the time, the property will show itself. And that kind of brings us to like the evolution of anime and just people kind of stumbling over these hurdles and like finding out what works and what doesn't.
Yeah, like I said, you get a lot of variety in anime, and I think that's the coolest thing. Anyway, so the next thing we want to talk about is the mid 2000s and all the different genre tropes from the past.
Yeah, so like I mean, especially in anime, like when you look at previous anime, you can kind of see it's a really good reflection of the people who worked on it and the climate and environment that they lived in. Because creative work is derivative, so you make this work based on what you experience and what you have seen. So like, I mean, I think Digibro brought up an example, but he said if you had only ever read one book and you went to go write a book, the book you would write would be a hell of a lot like the book you read. So like the more work you have to draw on, the more flushed out and the more creative and kind of the more diverse you can make the work itself.
Have you ever seen the series Everything's a Remix? I haven't. There's like a 5-part series they have. Each video is like 30 minutes long. And it's about how everything is a remix of something else. Like the only way to create something original is by a mistake. That's the idea behind the Everything is a Remix. Mm-hmm. And so basically, like all of our art is through a series of mistakes. And it's like this crazy thing about like you can like watch like all these paintings who are very clearly inspired by previous paintings that are very clearly inspired by previous paintings. And these are all like super famous paintings you study in school. And it's a really neat video series. I'll link that off down in the description for anyone who wants to watch that.
I guess that's kind of what I'm saying, because like I guess as the anime industry, because you got to think the anime industry itself isn't that old. Animation as a technique wasn't invented until like I think in the 1920s, 1930s. Back World War I think the first animation was actually like a World War like propaganda thing that was shown in theaters. So I mean, from that point, a black and white, like basically a GIF with like just like subtitles. We've come from that to what we have today. So it's not a very long time. And when you think about it, the actual like in comparison to painting and music and paintings and art, other forms of artwork have thousands of years of history and development behind them. Anime only has 50.
The first actual animation to ever come out was in 1906. It was by a French director named Émile Cole, and he just drew a stick figure character.
Okay, I guess I was wrong. So the first ever animation was actually, stick figures on crack. Oh, fuck. So basically, what I was saying is, like the anime industry itself only has like maybe like I think Astro Boy was the first real big Japanese animation that came out, and that was right shortly after World War II, I think in the 1950s or 60s, and then from there it kind of developed in that sense. But what we're seeing right now is a lot of people who were working in anime during its genesis are still working in anime or have only just recently retired. A lot of the original founders and a lot of the studios that we have today, because there are a lot of animation studios out there now, and there are a lot of them that specialize in specific things, and even like CGI animation, which is kind of like a new advent that's been developing and kind of like corresponding with traditional animation technology. You see all of these studios are always started by the same people. Like there's a family tree of animation studios, and you can trace it all back, and like these people are working for this person that ran this studio back in the day that was actually owned by this studio, which was founded by the first guy who ever made Astro Boy, that kind of thing. Like Hayao Miyazaki, he's been around for quite a while in the anime industry, and he's talked about retiring like 20 times. He's probably not retiring.
He'll retire when he's dead.
Yeah, pretty much. Well, like it was funny too, because he actually like after that last film that got like into the Cannes movie festival or whatever, the one about the red turtle. Hayao Miyazaki said that he was going to retire, and like I think a few weeks ago I heard something about him like trying to get funding for a new project or something like that. So,
he came out of retirement again. He always does that though. Isn't that like the fourth time he said he's retiring though?
But the janitor, like I bet like the janitor just shows up to like dust Ghibli films, and like Hayao Miyazaki's just in there by himself. Nobody else around, like, and he's just scribbling away. He's like, I'm gonna make all these fucking storyboards. He basically started making storyboards for this film before he even got approved for funding, which was hilarious. So yeah, and like, you know, he's just one of his buddies just has to come up and be like, Miyazaki, we don't make anime here anymore. Like, you go home, go to your wife, just live, just live. No,
Relax,
but
buddy.
all he wants to do is just make anime and smoke, I guess. But yeah, so like, I mean, especially with that, like Ghibli Films too has been around, I think, for quite a while, and I've watched like Nausicaa of the Wind and some of their older works too from like the 80s and stuff like that, and it's amazing at how much things have changed in such a short period of time, and like how much fresh talent has actually had an influence on the anime industry. I feel like this as a creative industry is changing faster than any other creative industry that we've witnessed before, in the way that it's made, in the way that it's conceived, the ideas that it conveys, and also the way that it's distributed around the world. So there's this really interesting genesis that's been occurring, and I feel like you can, like, with such a shallow depth of anime to actually look at, because conceivably speaking, a person could literally watch every single anime show ever made, and it wouldn't take them that long. You would
It'd
be
probably
able to
take them
do
a
it.
while. I mean, you would almost be dead, but yeah, I think you can do it. I think there's how many total anime are there in the world? I think I saw a number a while back and I forgot.
I don't know, but I know that it's not.
It's a few thousand. It's
Yeah.
like, but yeah, it's not ridiculous. It's not insane. Whereas like, God, the amount of art pieces there are in the world, or the amount of symphonies. Oh God, I don't really know how many of those are.
But what we can kind of drive from that as well, with anime still kind of being in its infancy, I'd argue it's still in its infancy. Soon, I hope that soon with the way that intellectual property laws are going and the internet and stuff like that, that it will eventually become a global industry that will be very developed. So we're kind of seeing bits of that now. But with such a shallow kind of base, it's very flexible in the way that it can move around and deal with certain themes. And, you know, anime is kind of a reflection of the time when it's created. So if you look at the anime of the 80s and the 90s, there was a lot of science fiction anime. And that had mostly had to do because, like, in the 80s and 90s, all around the world, there was this really big science fiction boom. That's when we had Star Wars and Alien and all of this other stuff, like, and all of this science fiction anime started coming out across, you know, even the early mecha shows, and then kind of going from there into Ghost in the Shell, and then movies like that similar kind of taste. And then that trend kind of died out with the rise and fall of science fiction and pop culture. So there was a fairly long time. Science fiction's always going to be there. There was a very long time where there wasn't much of it getting made, because everybody kind of, after the Evangelion boom, everybody was trying to make Eva, and everybody burned out of it pretty quick. So that ended. And then in the mid to late 90s and then early 2000s, we saw the rise of kind of like these really raunchy kind of comedy shows. Like, you had Great Teacher Onizuka, and then you kind of started to get I almost forgot to mention, like, Dragon Ball Z and stuff like that coming out in the 80s, and then continuing on to a lot of these...
Dragon Ball Z and stuff like that was kind of raunchy back then. I mean, they had the I know there's a few scenes where it's like the freaking what's her name would fling up her skirt and shit.
Just, yeah,
and there
just
was like
really
like
crude,
censoring walls.
Really
in
crass,
America.
like, childish humor that came out of those shows. But, like, yeah, basically, I find it really interesting because once you see that develop, and then you kind of have formulas and tropes that get figured out along the way, as well too. Like in the early 90s, you kind of started to see, like, the shonen formula, like the bigger drill syndrome kind of start to develop ever more and more. And then we had things like, you know, Dragon Ball. Dragon Ball was kind of definitely the start of it, as well as, like, and then you had Naruto and One Piece starting to kind of really hit, and these shows becoming massively successful. And with these shows becoming successful with the younger generation, this younger generation would now grow up around anime, whereas the previous generation had only gotten into it through other means via regular television and movies and cinematography and stuff like that. So now all of a sudden we have this generation of creators that was born and raised around the medium that they would go on to be creating, and we've never been able to really watch that happen before. But yeah, like, as far as the mid 2000s go, like, after the kind of genesis of, like, the shonen formula, and then we had, like, things like Initial D come out, and then Great Teacher Onizuka, and then all of this other stuff, we kind of started to watch that develop into its own kind of thing. And then that kind of took a backseat. And then in the mid 2000s, there was this weird kind of art house thing that came out, like, and in the early 2000s too, we had Serial Experiments Lane and Boogie Pop Phantom, and all of a sudden, all of these really weird kind of niche shows getting created by people that you had never really heard of before, because they were new to the industry. They were coming in on the kind of coattails of the bigger shows that were in the 80s and 90s. And then we just started to see a lot of really fucked up shit. Like the mid-2000s and the early to late 2000s, I feel, were the times when, you know, you had things like Elfen Lied, Higurashi no Naku Koro ni, you had Rin, Daughters of Minose, like Shiki came out, like just all of the really gruesome and brutal kind of gory shows that hit the mainstream. That's when those were kind of around. And then you could actually watch the reaction of the anime industry when Japan introduced its new international censorship laws that stated that anything like frontal nudity and extensive gore, violence, and even guns for a while were required to be censored. And all anime was basically audited by the Japanese censorship organizations at the time. So anime became a lot more tame in the late 2000s and then the early 2010s and stuff like that. And then that kind of brings us up to where we are now, where we're kind of finding this middle zone. And we still have some awkward growing pains from the whole thing, like like Tokyo Ghoul, for example. Yeah. And then you got things like
Madoka Magica, man, I just remember when that came out with the whole, how that was like supposed to be like a revitalization of like the violent kind of anime genre, which it was pretty successful at. I mean, shit, I just remember like when episode 3, I was like mind blown. Like, oh, they just murdered her.
That's just, yeah, she just dead. Like, I mean, yeah, and before that, like, I mean, I don't know, I feel like it was almost like Western media for a while. Like, it was taboo to kill the main character. Mm-hmm. And now we got Magical Girl Raising Project, which I would feel like is a direct result of Madoka Magica, just because, like I was saying earlier, kind of like the anime industry being incestuous and all of these people drawing experiences and, you know, basically references from previous works. We kind of start to see the same ideas get reiterated. So, I mean, it's a good thing and it's a bad thing, because in the sense, like, things like Madoka Magica could really only happen if somebody understood the way that the magical girl genre functioned. Okay? Mm-hmm. But things like Magical Girl Raising Project, despite how much I do enjoy that show on a personal level, I feel like they're the result of just the same idea being almost beaten to death. I mean...
Yeah, there's been a lot of magical girl shows where it's like, oh, well, it's always gonna... Now it's almost a trope for magical girl shows to turn dark.
Yeah.
Which is kind of weird.
So now all of a sudden we're gonna have, like, subversions of subversions where magical girl shows just go back to being normal. Like, I don't...
Like, have you watched the most recent episode of Flip Flappers yet?
No, I don't think I've seen the most recent one, but I have been keeping up on it, and that shit's intense.
Oh my god, it gets so much more intense.
Those are current shows. We can't talk about those yet.
That is true. Speaking of which, I think this is a good spot to end it for the day. Thank you so much for coming out. Go check out the Smugglers YouTube channel. He does all kinds of stuff.
It's a good time, yeah. And I'd like to thank Manime over here for having me again. It's always been a pleasure, and I hope people didn't mind me talk and ramble for half an hour there. That wasn't bad.
Yeah, well, don't worry. We get to talk and ramble for another half hour tomorrow, so it sounds awesome.
It'll be great. Okay, well...
Well, I'll see you tomorrow.
Until next time.
Until next time. This is Man. Make sure you guys say, man, go watch that goddamn anime.